Alright, time for another crappy car video. What's up, it's me Kevin. I'm here with another video. So, sure if you've seen a few of my other videos, you would realize I've been kind of going through it lately. I've been going through quite a period of unemployment, and it's given me some time to reflect on my life and reevaluate what it means to work. When we think of work, we think of the usual 9 to 5 grind. We think, showing up, punching in, working for a boss, working 8 hours, working 8 hours, working 40-hour weeks. But there's other ways. There are other ways to work. I don't necessarily believe that you need a job, but you do need to work. You do need to do something. I mean, I've been going through a period where for the first few months after I lost my job, I was kind of feeling bad. I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. So I was just laying in bed, sleeping in, feeling sorry, eating, getting fat, just being a sad sack, and not really getting anything done. And eventually you get tired of it. Eventually you kind of get mad. You get sick and tired of it. You can't just spend all your days just sitting around in pleasuring yourself. I don't know how some people do that. I mean, I can't do that. Maybe a few weeks. I'll stay down a couple weeks. I've been in this situation before. A job just doesn't work out. I've been in and out of jobs for quite some time. And it's just like, you got that period where you feel sorry for yourself. You feel kind of down, depressed for a couple weeks, but eventually it's just like, man, I gotta get going. I gotta get the fuck up. I gotta find something to do. I mean, because you can just stay down. You can just wait and hope something falls into your lap. Hope the stars align. And then the weeks go by and nothing changes, and it's just like the boredom, the dissatisfaction. And I'm kind of the guy I gotta be doing shit. I gotta be moving. And most of the jobs I had were very active roles. I was not a sedentary guy. I am not a sedentary guy. It's hard to be sad and depressed when you're busy, when you got shit to do, when you're walking steps, 10,000 steps a day, and you have to, you're constantly moving. The day seems to go by faster, and you go to bed exhausted. By the time you get enough sleep is less of an issue. Now, if you sit down and you sit on your ass all day and you're walking like 2,000 steps per day, you can't stay off your phone, you're distracted, and then you complain you can't sleep. Or you feel depressed because you're 40 pounds overweight. You look like shit. You look like the Michelin Man. Women are scared of you. Yeah, I could see how that could make somebody depressed. Look, like so many other people my age, I can't stand the idea of working my ass off, working 80 fucking hours a week for some boss, for some company, slaving away to make somebody else rich while just remaining just over broke. But I don't believe we were made to just sit around and sit in comfort all day, playing video games, jerking off. That's not the way. I believe in purpose. I believe in doing something. And it doesn't have to mean slaving away. It could be anything. It could be starting a business, or even finding a job. And I'm not going to knock 9 to 5s if you like it, if you like what you do, if you decide to pursue it as a career. Otherwise, it's just a stepping stone, just a way to pay the bills, get ahead, while you build something and you plan your moves on the side, whatever that may be. And in 2025, a lot of the best opportunities now are on the internet. A lot of things are moving towards the internet, online. You know, the old school, the old brick and mortar, it's less common nowadays. You know, we can do things so much faster than we used to be able to. We can reach a much broader audience, broader customer base than we ever could before. You should be pursuing something that resonates with you. Think about something that if you already had money, what's one thing you would still do? Yeah, sure, maybe there's some people who would love to just sit around, play video games, and jerk off all day. But I'm talking about those of us who actually have ambition, those of us who actually want to get somewhere and build something in life, so that when they're old, they can be proud of what they did. I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, I wish I worked more. No, they're going to say, I wish I took that chance. I wish I started that business. I wish I talked to that girl. I wish I took that trip. So no, you don't necessarily need a 9 to 5, but you do need to work. You do need to find something that you can do, a skill, a way to earn a living. There was a time when I was working a job. I was making about $60K per year, but I was working about 60 hours a week. And at the same time, I realized deep down, I didn't actually want to stay there. I didn't want to stay there forever. I didn't want to turn it into a long-time career. For me, it was just a stepping stone, just a way to earn enough so that I could save and invest in my future. Save for retirement. I maxed out my Roth IRA every year. Every year I was there. Meanwhile, I was working on a side hustle. I was learning about e-commerce, learning about how to sell things online. I started selling some things on eBay. The sales were slow, but for me it was largely just a learning lesson, a way of just getting my feet wet, just to see if I could, just to see if it was feasible. But in 2018, actually that's how it started. 2018, I had been working some minimum wage job for quite some time. I was there for like 6 years, and till I decided I wanted to level up. I wanted to change. I was 26 years old, still living with my parents. Eventually I would be taking off my parents' insurance, so I knew I would have to start. I'd have to get my own insurance. I just recently purchased a new truck, so I was paying for that as well. So I was planning my next moves. And at the time, my goal was, I said to myself, I want to make at least $50,000 a year. So I started looking for second jobs, or I started looking for full-time jobs that paid that much. If I had to work 2 jobs, so be it. At the time, I was only making it was a part-time job I was working. loading mulch into people's vehicles, working at a lawn garden pet place, filling propane tanks, stocking the shelves with bird seed. A lot of physical labor, a lot of physical toil. I drove a box truck. Sometimes I would do local deliveries to people's houses. And I was working less than 40 hours. I was only making about $260 a week. That's certainly not enough. Even back then, I needed to at least double it. So I decided I wanted to either get a better job or work a second job. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of stacking jobs like that. Just having to stack multiple low-skilled jobs. That's not a... If you have to, you gotta do it. But, I would rather have, one job that pays enough than have to rely on multiple crappy, low-wage jobs that just eat up all your time. The less skilled you are, the more you have to pay, the more of your time you have to sacrifice. Whereas the more skilled you are, you can get more done in less time. Oh, this is like my third coffee of the day. I'm such an addict, caffeine addict. Anyways, I was saying, especially in the beginning when you lack skill, you have to pay in time. You have to trade your time for money. So I was looking for either a better job or extra work, and eventually I got an opportunity. I finally found a place that would pay more, a lot more than I was making, to do less. I believed I was certainly qualified. I had the skills, I had the experience. I ended up getting the job. A couple months later, I actually got a promotion, got promoted to a higher position. My pay got bumped up. So from the old job, I was making like 10 something an hour. When I started the next job, I went from 10 to 15 an hour. And then when I got promoted, I went from 15 to 18. And 18 an hour, that's nothing nowadays, but back in 2018, pretty sure the minimum wage was still around $10. Wasn't too bad. Long story short, and once the pandemic hit, I was an essential worker, so I still had to show up. I still had to work anyway. Our pay got bumped up even more. And then next thing you know, we're making 20 plus an hour. So in a couple years, I basically doubled my hourly rate, and I quadrupled my yearly salary. I went from making peanuts to making I hit my goal. I exceeded my goal. I said I wanted to make 50,000, within a couple of years I was making like 60,000. But I never wanted to stay there forever. It was just a stepping stone. It was a way to save money, to save capital, while I worked on myself. Figured out where I wanted to go in life, what I wanted to pursue. A couple months into my journey at my new job, I decided, screw college. I started learning about business and other ways. And I guess I realized that I had more of a choice. I could find other ways to make money, to make a living. You learn skills. A lot of the most successful people, many of them were high school, college dropouts. A lot of them couldn't hold down a normal 9-to-5 job. And I believe at the end of the day, I'm not going to say, oh, everything happens for a reason. But you could almost say that maybe they were meant for that. Maybe they just weren't meant for the normal life. Some people are just different. You know, when shit doesn't work out, maybe it's just not for you. Maybe you were meant for something else. But I think every person should try to find a purpose. It might be given to you. It might be many years before you find your calling, before you find something. But sometimes you just have to make it. Sometimes you just have to find it. It doesn't always just fall into your lap. Sometimes you have to go out and make it happen. But I believe every person should try to find some form of purpose. And because if you don't, the world will decide where you belong. The world will decide your place. So the choice is yours. You know, you can go out and decide what you want to do, or you can let the world decide for you. For those people who are ambitious, for those people who want to achieve and do something great in life, you got to get out there. You got to find your purpose. You got to find whatever it is that brings you fulfillment. You know, I had a job. I was making good money. I was making $60K a year. I had my full emergency fund, but I had no life. I had no fucking life. No time to do anything. And eventually I had a moment, I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing with myself here? There was something that wanted more. There was something that wanted to be able to earn my time back and be able to, you know, make moves in my life. Learn a skill, learn a hobby, join a club, have time with my family. Not spend the rest of my waking hours busting my ass to work for somebody else, make somebody else rich. While I come home to some place, paying rent, and barely have time. I'm barely there anyway. Because I'm constantly at work all the fucking time. Working 6 nights a week, working 14 hours. But if you're on your purpose, if you're doing something that you enjoy, think of it. If you can spend 12, 14 hours doing stuff you don't resonate, stuff you hate to do, imagine what you'd be willing to put into yourself, to your own goals. Something that you built, you created. Or something that just, even if it's just a job, working a job that you like, that just gives you that energy, gives you that motivation to get up every day and be like, let's do it. But I don't think we're meant to just sit around. I don't think we're meant to just rot. You know, we're humans, we're survivors. Our ancestors didn't just sit around and do nothing. We owe everything we got nowadays to ambition, to our ancestors who are constantly fighting to survive, constantly improving, studying mathematics, science, technology. And all that stems from the human desire for survival, but also for the human desire for purpose, for conquest, for discovery. Because we as humans, we always crave more. This is what made us so successful to begin with. This is why we're the most dangerous species on the planet. So let's use that. Let's use that inner passion, that inner drive. So you don't necessarily need a job. You don't need to do a bunch of bullshit for bullshit wages and settle for less than what you're worth. But you do need to do something. You do need to have a purpose. You do need to work.